All right, welcome in everybody. Thank you so much for joining the meetup for building your STEM Fair game plan. My name is Lori Brazili. I am with the Career Center. I'm one of the career coaches for our technology, data, and analytics career community. And so this topic is kind of wrapping up our technology, data, and analytics career community that we've had this week, where we've had some industry meetups. We've had some employers come and talk about what they're seeing in the industry. And so this is all kind of building up to what we have going on next week is our STEM Fair. It is taking place on January 30th. And so today is really just about how you can kind of prepare for your career fair season. And we have about, 30 to 45 minutes today. The beauty of our meetup program is that because we're kind of a smaller group, there will be time at the end for you to ask questions that you may have that are maybe specific to you or just general questions. So feel free to go ahead and pop those in the chat as you have them. And as we get through the slide deck at the end, we'll have time to go through the questions. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the career skills that we're going to be focusing on through this meetup and through what you'll be building as you're actually participating in the career fair are going to be our communication and professionalism career skills. And just as a reminder, these career skills are the essential skills that employers are looking for from candidates coming into roles as an intern, as a full-time employee, no matter what it is that you're studying, no matter if you're going into a technical field or a non-technical field. So what we're going to be focusing on are going to be our professionalism and communication skills. So all of these skills are what is required in order to be successful in the workplace. And that's what we kind of hope to gain from our time today. So our agenda is we're going to go over where you'll find the career fair schedule. We're going to talk about some preparation tips. We'll dive into your elevator pitch and how to prepare for that. We're going to cover professional attire and then go over how to talk to employers. So these are a couple of images of what career fairs can look like. The most traditional career fair is going to be pictured on the left-hand side in the Student Activity Center. And so this is what you can expect for the first two bigger career fairs that are happening this spring. You see employers that have their booths and then students that are kind of at those different booths talking with them. So this is kind of inside. The middle picture is actually a picture of our engineering employer and industry connection day. So this is more of like an outdoor event, a little bit more casual, but still it's an opportunity to connect with employers that are recruiting, for internships and jobs and that sort of thing. And then you may participate in a virtual career fair. So right when, the pandemic hit, we were doing virtual fairs. And there are still companies that actually organize their own virtual fair. So you may actually experience a virtual fair as you're kind of looking for internships and jobs. We don't do those anymore. Everything that we do pretty much is in person when it comes to a career fair, but just know that you might have that experience if it's an external event. So this QR code will get you to our career fairs page. These are our upcoming larger career fairs that we have going on. We have our STEM fair, which most of you are probably interested in attending next week, January 30th. A couple weeks after that, we have our career and internship fair, which is a little bit more broader in terms of the types of roles and the types of companies that are going to be there. If you're in a STEM field, you can still attend that fair as well. You don't necessarily have to attend the STEM fair only. So you do have that option to also attend the fair on February 13th. And then for anybody that may be looking for a part-time job that's off campus, we have our part-time job fair on March 12th. And this fair is actually in the student union on the third floor. So the first two fairs are going to be in the Student Activity Center. So that QR code is going to get you all of the details about the fair, where it's located, the time, all that stuff. So question, what do you want to get out of a career fair? Why don't you pop into the chat? What is your goal for the career fair? What are you hoping to get out of the maybe STEM fair that's coming up or anything else? So if you'll pop that in the chat for me, let's see what your goals are. At the very least, networking. Yes, absolutely. It's a great way to make connections and network, making connections, hoping for a job offer, to get an internship, meet employers. Yes. Industry connections, possible potential internships. Absolutely. Find out what they want to see on a resume. Yeah, you can absolutely ask that question when you're talking with employers. Make an impression. Yeah, great. Absolutely. This is a great way to make an impression or to continue that impression if you are targeting certain companies and maybe you've connected with them at other events and you want to connect with them again at the STEM fair or whatever fair you're going to. Continuing to make that impression over and over again is really good because employers remember those things. Networking, internships, first experience with your career fairs. Okay, yeah, absolutely. This is all great. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Continue to share if you like. These are some things that we came up with. Obviously, we talked about networking. It's obviously an opportunity to explore careers because there's lots of different career pathways that you might be able to learn about at the fair. Figuring out if the employer is going to align with your values and what it is that you're looking for out of a company. So as you're asking questions to those employers, maybe some of your line of questioning might be centered around the fit between you and that organization. So, but definitely connecting with recruiters about jobs, internships, and co-ops. So that's kind of, the overarching goal of what you may want to get out of the fair. So before the fair, it's really important that you do your research. This is probably the step that most people overlook. And because it can be a very overwhelming experience at the fair, there's a lot of people. There's the way that it's organized can be, kind of sometimes maybe difficult to make sense. The more preparation and research you do beforehand, the better off you're going to be when it comes to actually navigating just kind of the logistics of the fair. So you can find a list of organizations that are provided on the fair page. This is located in Hire a Niner, which is really helpful because you can, narrow your list down by the type of position that the employers are looking for, the job titles, industry, work authorization, those sorts of things. So my recommendation would first be to go to Hire a Niner, find the listing for the STEM fair, and then take a look at that list of employers and then do some filtering by there and maybe make a list of, at least 5 to 10 companies that you want to try to connect with, maybe prioritize those based on your research, who you definitely want to try to target either, while you're there. And then maybe, from there, you might have a list of, 5 additional that might be nice to talk to. You might not get to talk to everybody that's on your list, but definitely have that list. In terms of what to research, I recommend checking out our career guide on page 33, which you can find on our website. That has a list of things that you might want to research about the employer. So the biggest thing is to do research, figure out who you want to talk to, do research on the employer, and then come with questions. Okay, so come with questions based on your research. This is how you make a really good first impression, is through the questions that you ask the company. So make a list of what those questions are. Some of those questions may vary depending on the company and what you find out about the company. So however you organize yourself, whether it's through Google Docs or some other system, maybe you're just a pen and paper type of person, it doesn't necessarily matter. But make that list of questions, and then that way you'll have it available to reference as you're making your way through the fair. So definitely the biggest thing that you can do to make an impression is to come prepared and show the employer that you've actually done a bit of research on the company. So if you have questions about what you might ask them or what you might research, again, refer to our career guide and feel free to ask that for further clarification at the end. You also want to prepare your branding material. So this is really important. So your resume, you're going to want to bring copies of your resume just in case. I will say that because There are going to be times when the company is going to say, we're actually not allowed to collect resumes. So some companies do have policies against that. And so that's just what their policy is. And so they may say, hey, we need you to go to our company website and fill out an application there. Even if they do collect your resume, you're still most likely going to have to go to the company website and fill out an application. But you definitely want to make sure that your resume is polished, that it's professional, that it highlights the skills that you're trying to highlight and the experience that you're trying to highlight, your projects, those sorts of things. I would say if you have a GitHub or an online portfolio, I would definitely add those links to your resume at the top with your contact information, along with your LinkedIn. My recommendation would be to make sure you have a technical skills section that highlights the skills that you've developed, your technical skill set, anywhere from programming languages to operating systems, foundational concepts. It really just depends on what you're studying and what you want to do. So a technical skill section, I would make sure if you have internship experience already or any sort of job experience that's relevant to the role, or to technology or STEM in general, that you make sure you have that highlighted on your resume. And then projects. So projects, or any sort of activity that shows that you've taken, time out of your, daily outside of classes to, get some experience or get some exposure to kind of like STEM. And I'm using that generally. It could be, computer science or data science or engineering, whatever it is. So if you have a course projects or you have personal projects, definitely include that. But if you've done other activities like a hackathon, or maybe you attended a conference, whatever the case may be, those are good things to put on your resume. Okay. So the other thing that you need to think through is like, how do you actually approach these employers and what does that kind of interaction look like? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the employer, they're going to say hello to you, you're going to say hello back and introduce yourself. And essentially you're going to go through your elevator pitch. So your elevator pitch is kind of your 30-second to 1 minute kind of summary about who you are, maybe what you're studying at Charlotte, what some of your experience has been, or maybe a class that you've taken that you really enjoyed, whatever it is, and then talk about what it is that you're hoping to do, or maybe you talk about why you decided to go up to that particular company. So you want to kind of customize your elevator pitch depending on the types of companies or who you might be talking to. So again, in our career guide on our website, there is an elevator pitch outline, which I think is really helpful. And so you can kind of have a template, if you will, to kind of start your elevator pitch. And then since this is the week prior to the STEM fair, and the main career fair in February, if you want to bring your elevator pitch to drop-ins next week before the fair, then we can give you some feedback on, what we think about it. You can practice it with us. So you don't even need an appointment for that. So we're happy to kind of walk through your elevator pitch with you. So here is kind of what that could look like. So again, think of it as a 30-second to 1 minute commercial about yourself that can just help break the ice and get the interaction started in the right direction. So this example is, hello, my name is Jane. I'm a junior majoring in data science. I noticed your data analytics internship involves using visualization tools like Tableau. This actually aligns nicely with my current on-campus job with the Office of One IT at UNC Charlotte. I'm looking for an opportunity to expand on my data science skills in a new industry. So this person has introduced themselves with their name, has mentioned what they're studying and what their class standing is. They mentioned something that they had noticed based on their research that they did. So that is actually going to stand out to the employer. And then they talked very quickly about an experience that they have with an on-campus employer doing something related to technology, and that they're looking for future oriented to expand their data science skills in a new industry. So that is kind of encompassing that 30-second commercial with all those different aspects of that. So follow that framework, and that should kind of help you with putting something together. So my recommendation would be to write out your elevator pitch, practice it out loud. So practice it with maybe a friend or your roommate or your parent, or practice it with a career coach, kind of run through it. You can use your notes to begin. And then hopefully you can be, comfortable with it enough that you can kind of speak that without necessarily having notes. And it's not like you have to say the exact same thing over and over again, but you want to be able to kind of hit these basic points each time you introduce yourself. So happy to answer questions about that later on if you want. So these are the types of people that you're going to meet at the career fair. You're going to interact with HR people, so recruiters that are probably recruiting for a lot of different roles. You're also going to have an opportunity to connect with alumni from Charlotte. So a lot of these companies are going to bring alumni that are maybe individual contributors in the organization. They might be hiring managers. They might represent roles that are in fact really needed. And so they can kind of talk with students about what it's like to be in that role. So that's really cool because you'll get to interact with alumni that actually went to school at Charlotte and kind of understand what your experience has been like. These are also future coworkers, hiring managers, future supervisors. So those are the types of people that you're going to meet at the career fair when you're talking to the employer. So we also want to talk just a bit about what you would wear to a career fair. So it is a professional event, so we do recommend that you wear professional attire. We're not going to turn you away if you're not in, professional, business professional, but we do recommend that. A good rule of thumb is to dress one level up from what you might wear at the office. So if you know that you're focused on, let's say Duke Energy, and you know that you would be wearing, maybe a polo and jeans to work every day, then maybe, a nice shirt with some slacks, that would be kind of a step up. So the biggest thing is that your clothing should fit you correctly, and it should be appropriate. So this is something that is just part of your brand that employers, may focus on. So obviously you want them to focus on what you're saying rather than what you're wearing. So you will see a lot of people kind of dressed in professional attire. Here's a couple of other images that I think would be appropriate as well to wear to a career fair. So you have kind of a combination of business professional and business casual. So business casual is basically like this middle picture here with the individual that has the white collared shirt on and the black and the navy slacks. So they don't have a jacket on over that. So if they put a jacket on, then that would be like business professional. Without the jacket is business casual, but it's still very professional looking. It will make a good impression. So if you need assistance with clothing, we do have our professional clothing closet in the office. It's available for all students. The best time to access that would be during drop-ins, which again, to repeat, are Monday through Friday from 10 to 3. So that is something you would physically have to come to our office for. There's not really a virtual way to do that, but just do know that we have that as an option for you. And it's not a rental program, or you're not necessarily borrowing the clothing. So if you know that you have a couple of events coming up and you need some professional attire and you don't necessarily want to spend money, or you may not have the money to do that, you can come visit our clothing closet. And most of the stuff is, gently worn. We even get things that have never been worn before. So feel free to pop in, and we'd be happy to help you with that. Okay, so talking with employers, again, kind of going back to like, what does that interaction actually look like? So you're going to have that first initial contact with the employer. where you are doing that brief introduction, sharing of your name. You will probably do a handshake, maybe. I feel like handshakes are kind of, they used to be very common, and then we had, COVID, and then people got away from the handshake and they went with like the elbow bump or the fist bump, and just kind of follow the employer's lead on that, whatever you're comfortable with. But then you'll share your elevator pitch, and then from there, the company or the whoever you're talking to will kind of start with questions, and you'll kind of have this back and forth. So you have that thing. So you'll start answering questions about positions that you may be interested in, any experience or knowledge of the company that you have, and you're going to want to ask those questions. So ask about 1 to 2 questions based on the research that you've done. You can offer to share your resume if that's something that they're collecting. They may ask you right away for your resume. So just make sure that you have enough available in case you need to do that. And then you definitely want to thank them before you leave that interaction. Figure out how you can follow up with them. So it may be they may have a business card. You can ask them if they have a business card, or a lot of times people now have these digital cards that are like QR codes. You can scan it and get maybe connected to their LinkedIn, or you might can follow up with them on LinkedIn, but figure out how you can connect with them offline, because then you're going to want to do some follow up after the fact. So make sure that you're figuring out how you can connect with them before you leave that interaction. So once you've had some time to digest from the STEM fair, ideally you'll want to send a thank you email within 24 hours of the fair if possible. If that just seems like a lot to you, like maybe that seems overwhelming, the fair is on a Thursday, so I would say maybe take the weekend and then do your follow-up on Monday, ideally if possible. When you're following up, what you're following up about is really going to depend on what your conversation was. But ideally, you'll want to restate your interest in the opportunity that y'all talked about, or opportunities. Or if they said, hey, I'd love to just have a casual conversation, a career conversation, then you'll just restate your interest in that. If they told you to apply for a job and they directed you to the website and you've done that, like maybe you did that over the weekend, then I would let them know that you did that so that they can, flag that on their end. And what they will do most likely is they'll tag it in their system that they met you at the UNC Charlotte Career Fair. So employers have ways to identify, how they have met some of these candidates. And so that's almost just as good as a referral into the organization. If you hadn't already connected with them on LinkedIn prior to following up via email, then I would definitely connect with them on LinkedIn. Okay, so for those of you that don't know where we're located, we are actually in Atkins Annex. So if you are looking at Atkins Library in front of the Colvard and King buildings, we are to the right-hand side. There's a big sign that says Atkins Annex. We're across from the Center for Graduate Life and Learning. And so, as mentioned previously, you can drop into our office Monday through Friday from 10 to 3. Except on career fair days, we will all be over at the career fair, so you can't access our office on that day. But with drop-ins, you don't need an appointment. So those tend to be like 10 to 15-minute conversations. We can do that in person or on Zoom. Our website, again, is career.charlotte.edu. If you go there, you'll find a lot of information. That's where you can get connected to Hire Niner, which will then take you to our events list and job postings, and then you can see who's going to be at the fair, the STEM fair next week, and start that research process. You can also follow us on social media. I mentioned that we have a YouTube channel, but we also are on all the other social sites. Our handle is at Charlotte Career Center. And yeah, with that, that is all I have. So now the rest of the time is basically for what questions you all have based on anything that I shared. Concerns. Feel free to, if you want to raise your virtual hand, you can do that, or put something in the chat. We have about 15 minutes to do this.
So you mentioned some employers won't take a resume, but we
Yeah.
should still print off resumes to bring. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know who won't and who will. It's mainly a company policy, but it's always best to have, at least 10 copies just in case you need them.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So the presentation will be on our YouTube channel. I can't give you a date of when that will be available, but it will eventually make it there. There should also be a career fair crash course meetup on our YouTube channel that exists. That's very similar to what we just covered today. So if you need something sooner than when we can get the this recording on there, then I would recommend that. But good question. Jason, is it better to follow up on LinkedIn or email? So if they give you a business card, if you ask what's the best way to follow up with them and they give you a business card, I would definitely follow up on email. And then also follow up on LinkedIn. So I would do both, like follow up on email and then make sure that you connect with them on LinkedIn. If you can, send them a personalized message and just state where you met them so that they can connect the dots. But I know LinkedIn actually kind of limits the number of personal messages you can send to connection requests, unless you have premium. I think it's like 5 or 6 a month, but that's what I would recommend is to do both actually, but definitely email if you can. Would it be okay to apply for a position before the fair? I know recruiters need to get credit from it. Oh yeah, absolutely. If you've already applied for a position, that's great. And then when you are having that conversation with them, tell them that you've applied for the position for sure. Maybe ask some questions that you have based on what you see in the job description that might intrigue you. So yeah, it's okay to go ahead and apply for it. Really, the sooner that you apply, the better. Just in general with job searching, but yeah, you don't have to wait to talk to them at the fair. You'll see too that like it's not required for the employers that are attending the fair to have it posted in HireNiner, but that doesn't mean that it's not. So I would look in HireNiner. Actually, the platform does a really good job when you're looking at the company that is going to be attending. You can connect directly to see what positions they have posted in HireNiner. But if they're not any posted, it doesn't mean they're not hiring. You just might have to go to their company website to look at those job postings. Do you have advice for connecting experience from another field, your ex-military? Yeah, absolutely. I think, just think about those transferable skills that you built, like in this situation, in the military or whatever your experience is that relate to that role. So, that could be, again, going back to the career skills, maybe it's problem solving or critical thinking or teamwork. It really just kind of depends, but I think leveraging that experience and like what you got out of that experience from a skills perspective that kind of makes you stand out. So that would be my recommendation for anybody that has experience that's outside of what they're actually going for. So just think about those transferable skills. Do I think that a business major would be able to get good value out of a STEM career fair, or should more concentration be put onto the general one? Yeah, take a look. I would say take a look at the companies that are going to be there and the roles that they're hiring for. Yeah, it's hard to say with organizational management. I mean, that seems pretty broad, so I don't know exactly what you're looking for. But like if you were looking for analytical type of roles, like an analyst role, like a business analyst or data analyst, you might see that at the STEM fair. But I definitely would first take a look at that. And then I definitely think the general fair would be a good fit too. Hey Jason, yeah, my recommendation is if you put an elevator pitch together, bring it by in drop-ins, and then a career coach can kind of help you with refining it or give you feedback on it. So yeah, we're happy to do that in drop-ins. Absolutely. If you borrow clothes, yeah, you don't have to return them. They're actually for you to keep. You can return them, but you can when you're not necessarily borrowing them, you're taking them for yourself. So you don't have to return them unless you want to. All great questions. Other questions that y'all may have, related to maybe the elevator pitch, like when you're talking about related experiences or activities that you could share. I feel like that's the part where, people get kind of not really sure what to say. Hey, Jason. Okay, the question is, how long would you say a good conversation would be? Honestly, that's hard to say only because I think it's going to depend on how long the lines are. So if you're going to see very quickly the companies that have a long lines may not be able to spend as much time with you because they're trying to get through the number of students, just capacity. So I think you have to take that into consideration. My recommendation would be, obviously you're going to have a target list, but there might be some companies that you weren't necessarily targeting that don't have anybody at their table, and you could definitely maybe do some quick research on that company before you go talk to them. So when you get to the fair, you'll actually get a handout that has a map and legend of where all of the employers are going to be located. There'll also be a QR code that you can scan to do research on that company or to connect you to what that company is there for. Obviously you can, pull them up on your mobile phone to figure out what they do. So there might be booths that don't have a lot of people there, and you might actually get to spend, a significant amount of time. I would say on average a few minutes, to be honest with you. I think again, it's just going to depend on how many people are there. Um, but if it seems like a brief interaction, try not to be dissuaded by that. Because again, there's just a lot of students they might have to try to get through. The biggest thing would be, come prepared with your questions, that you want to find out, and then hopefully you'll get your answers to those questions, and then figure out what the follow-up, what the next steps are. Yeah. And just because you talk to, let's say it's you know Duke Energy, just because you talk to them at the STEM fair, that's probably not the only interaction that they'll be doing with us on campus. So there might be other smaller events where you could plug in with them again. And so the more you kind of show up at those events with the same companies, they I don't know how they do it, but they remember that, especially if you're asking them questions. So good questions. Can I elaborate on what types of questions we should ask? I've heard something related to the office culture is good. Yeah, I mean, good question, Daniel. I think it depends on what's important to you. If you are trying to understand, does the organizational environment align with what you're looking for? I think that's a great thing to kind of probe. Maybe figure out like how long that person has been at the organization. If they've been there for a significant amount of time, ask them what's the best thing that they like about working there. What are some challenges that, if it's an internship, let's just say, that they're recruiting for, what are some challenges that interns may face, or what are some projects that, can they give examples of projects you might be working on as an intern? Those are some examples. Throw that question into ChatGPT, y'all, and figure out what, that is a great way to develop a list of questions as well. But those are some things. Yeah, I think organizational culture can be good if that's something that you're focused on. What if we seem to be lacking with technical skills so far, lacking coding projects, still developing coding? Would we just be able to talk about transferable skills, soft skills? Yeah, I mean, Khalil, great question. I think it depends on like where you are, I think too, in your career journey as an early career professional. So if you don't have a ton of experience yet, you could talk about maybe a class that you've taken or that you're taking that's really intriguing you. Again, maybe something that you're involved in or that you've done that kind of demonstrates your interest in maybe the field, something outside extracurricular activities. I mean, employers do want to see like kind of the diversity in terms of like what you've done. So if you're involved in like the rowing club, or maybe you are in the marching band or something even like that, can be really interesting to talk about. But yeah, those transferable skills, or what we call career skills. So like the teamwork, critical thinking, those sorts of things are great things to talk about as well. And I will say that 9 times out of 10, when I'm talking to employers with regards to internship recruitment, they're not necessarily focused on the person that has the best technical skill set, because when you're in the internship, there's going to be that learning curve and capacity to learn those technical skills. So a lot of times what stands out to them are people that are like naturally curious, that like learning. So if you can show that, that tends to go a long way further than, oh, do you have like, do you know how to do X, Y, and Z in Python and SQL? Doesn't mean that your technical skills aren't important. They are, but it doesn't mean that's the only thing that they're focused on. So hopefully I know that was a long answer, but hopefully that helped. Can you have your resume reviewed by the Career Center? Yes, you can get your resume reviewed during drop-ins. So that would be my recommendation. So we have drop-ins tomorrow, and then you'll have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. All great questions. You're welcome. All right. Any other questions I can answer before we say goodbye? I'll pop a couple of links for you in the chat. The main one is just our website here. So that'll take you to our website. And then if you scroll about halfway down, you'll see our career guide on the right-hand side, which I just linked for you right there. So that's our career guide. And then Hire a Niner, the link for Hire a Niner, it's just hireaniner.charlotte.edu. Tyler's asking what's the best approach when connecting with employers on LinkedIn? Great question. It really depends. Are you talking about a recruiter or just an individual contributor at the company or a hiring manager? I guess I need some more context to answer that question. There are a few employers listed for science background. Does the employers list finalized, or are there any other companies? There may be some last minute ads, but I would say that's probably a really good list. I know that we have like a cutoff for employers, so I'm not sure if we're still adding, but in my experience, we normally have 1 or 2 that get added at the last minute. Tyler, do you want to come off mute and explain more about your question? Or are you typing it?
Yeah, so who exactly would I be speaking with on LinkedIn after the career fair if I make a connection with somebody there?
Well, I mean, it would depend on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to a recruiter, then you would connect with the recruiter on LinkedIn after the fair. Am I understanding your question? Is that?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
know you had
Yeah.
mentioned about like emailing them as well. And so you said, so
Yeah.
that mainly just to thank them for
Mhm.
their time and speaking with them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, definitely the email will be a little bit more probably in depth. Like a few sentences where when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, if you personalize the message, you're limited to the number of characters. So that might be a little bit like more brief than what an email would be. But yeah, it could be the recruiter, the alumni that maybe is a software engineer, or a hiring manager that's a software engineering manager, whoever it is that you're talking to. So I think you'll find that you'll interact with a variety of people.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending, for your questions. Please reach out to me if I can help you with anything, or anybody in the Career Center. We're here to help, and yeah, we'll be obviously around the next week to help you with preparation for the fair. We'll be at the fair, so if you find yourself very overwhelmed, have no fear. Find somebody that's in probably a black Career Center polo that looks like they know what they're talking about. We'll have people stationed all over the fair. So if you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, I need some help, I have questions, we're here to help you. So please reach out to us. All right. Have a great day.